What happens when a tiny cabin, a flower farm, and a big imagination collide in the Vermont woods?
And we thought that was crazy, that it was way too rustic. No one would actually pay us to come stay here. But we did it just for the heck of it, and we were blown away by the response.
Melissa Hessney Masters built a 100 square foot cabin on her property and turned it into one of the most sought after glamping stays in the Northeast.
Maybe no one else would really appreciate it, so we really hesitated because, when you love something so much, you don't necessarily want everyone's critique, who it wasn't necessarily made for.
And Melissa did not stop with the cabin. Behind the dreamy photos, she built an experience complete with wildflower bouquets, a wood-fired hot tub, and intentional hospitality rooted in slow living and seasonal rhythms.
I'm always looking at it through like the farming lens. If I hire, field work, that's really hard. There's a lot of training involved. Even if you've worked on another farm, every farm is a little bit different. But cleaning is...
My name is Jason Muth. I'm a 33-time Airbnb superhost. After working 25 years in the media business, I started building my chapter 2 through the world of short-term rentals. Since then, I've hosted over 6,800 guests and their furry friends, and now manage more than $30 million worth of vacation homes, including the ones that we own and the ones on behalf of our clients. This show is all about helping you create a smart stay, personal, profitable, and built to last. It's real world hosting done smart. Now we're talking to Melissa. Our guest today legitimately has a cabin in the woods, and she knows everything about, how to integrate this in with other businesses that are on site where she is. This is Melissa Hessney Masters. Melissa, welcome to SmartStay Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason.
Your cabin is so interesting. This is such an interesting business. I can't even say little business because you have so many guests. It's probably bringing in great money for you. Dwell Magazine has featured you. And I've seen so many things on my Instagram feed about off the grid living, geodomes, mirror cabins. We've had great guests on that are doing this like in Western Texas. You're in Vermont and you have this cabin literally in the woods on your property. So tell us who you are and tell us all about this.
Yeah, thank you. So we have, my husband and I have a small cut flower farm called Tangle Bloom. And we've been growing flowers since about 2013. And we had this little open air cabin in the woods that we built ourselves, over 10 years ago when we first bought this property. And we were just using it for ourselves. And when we had a baby and we just weren't using it very much, it was just kind of sitting out there. We had some friends that sort of jokingly said we should throw it up on Airbnb and rent it out. And we thought that was crazy, that it was way too rustic. No one would actually pay us to come stay here. But we did it just for the heck of it. And we were blown away by the response. And so that's kind of how it all started. And we've just sort of been improving it ever since. I kind of got obsessed with, trying to really turn it into a real experience and give guests what they were looking for, which was an escape in nature away from the city, and to be comfortable while camping.
If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to encourage you to click on the links below to the property so you could see it and follow along as we're discussing this cabin in the woods. But we're literally talking about a cabin which has windows everywhere. Like the roof is clear, as I'm seeing. Sunlight coming through the trees into this cabin. It's probably how many square feet? 200?
Not even. It's about 100 square feet. And then there's a covered porch that adds a little more.
I have like logistics questions also. I'm like an operations person. So it's like heat. Is it heated?
No. So this is very seasonal. We operate from May through October.
And you're also on a site called Hip Camp, which I don't know anything about Hip Camp, and you have 30 something reviews on there. So clearly people are using Hip Camp. Tell us what Hip Camp is and how that contributes.
Yeah. So Hip Camp is like Airbnb, but for camping. And it started out mostly with farmers or, landowners who had land to sort of rent out to, be able to diversify and increase their income while also giving campers a different experience than like, say, a state
Right.
park campground.
Like my experience camping is minimal. Rory, who if he was Rory is at some attorney event today. That's why he's not here at the podcast. But he's an Eagle Scout. He grew up camping, so he begrudgingly has taken me camping before, where I had to do tent camping on the ground, and I did not love it. So I'm more of the glamping type. 5 years ago, we did an amazing road trip through upstate New York and the Adirondacks and the Finger Lakes and St. Lawrence River and just that whole area that I hadn't explored as a native New Yorker from downstate. But we rented an Airstream and we did it, and we stayed in state parks and COAs and stuff, and I loved it. And I saw cabins in those state parks too, or those COAs. I'm like, hey, how do I rent that next time? That's kind of what this thing is right here. Um,
Yeah,
so
sort
there's
of.
clearly a demand for this, and I can't even say it's a subculture of people. This is probably an aspiration for many to have these types of getaways. So you've had this cabin available for rental for how many years?
Since
So 6
2017.
years. Okay. And does it just keep getting better and better in terms of income, revenue?
It, for the most part,
Hmm.
2021 was kind of an abnormal blip for us, when, there was still sort of gathering restrictions or people being more cautious, outdoor activities really
Hmm.
skyrocketed. So 2021 was probably our best revenue year. Um, but, still no
So, and
complaints.
do you, I don't know if you talk about numbers at all on the podcast. I mean, like the Dwell article, which again is linked here in the description, says all it took was $3,000 and a bit of imagination to bring this see-through Vermont cabin to life. $3,000?
So yeah, I love Dwell. I love all the press, but like anyone, they're
Sure,
looking
of
for
course.
clicks, right? So if you get through the whole article, the $3,000 was, first of all, that was in like 2012,
Okay.
2011. So a little outdated pricing, and that was just for the bare bones first iteration of
Hmm.
the cabin itself. So lumber and the transparent roof and lots of elbow grease provided
All right. So
by my
you
husband,
guys
Mike.
built this thing.
So,
What was
yes.
permitting like in Vermont for this?
So, very minimal because the town we live in does not have zoning. So, we didn't have to get any sort of permit for that. It's
Hmm.
not housing. It falls into the category of a camp, it's seasonal. So, it's not a residence. You couldn't live out there. So, um, that makes it a
Hmm.
little bit easier when you're doing basically a
We are
camp.
seeing more communities that are encouraging use for ADUs and secondary homes on their properties. Not that this is that, but it falls in a similar bucket in that it's a second dwelling on your property. I mean, you do live on this same property, right?
We
And
do.
I have friends that are buying land or buying houses in communities where they kind of have their eyeball on that lot in the backyard that maybe you could put a second dwelling in, or redoing that garage. We had a guest many years ago on this podcast, a friend of ours, Avery Heilbronn, who is doing this in North Carolina, where he moved down there and like he took his garage and basically turned it into a second unit on the property. It's such an interesting way to maximize the property that you already own. And that might be something, if you're listening to this, you're wondering, hey, can I do this on my property? The answer is maybe, right? So,
Hmm.
so you
Exactly.
had this cabin in the woods, though, and what gave you the inspiration to start renting it out to other people?
Yeah, it was really just the fact that we weren't using it very much once we had a baby. Sleeping out where it's light as soon as the sun comes up is
Hmm.
not great for a baby. So that was the real inspiration. And it was so special to us. And we kind of thought that, maybe no one else would really appreciate it. So we really hesitated because, when you love something so much, you don't necessarily want everyone's
Hmm.
critique, who it wasn't necessarily made for. But once we sort of, moved past that, and I also was, kind of struggling in my floral design business where it's very high stress. It's very all in, it's long hours, it's 6 days a week. And, with parenthood, that just wasn't meshing very well. So I was also very open to trying to find another way to diversify our income while also being able to stay home essentially.
Okay, more logistics. So running water, yes or no?
Yep. So sort of. Everything is like a little bit. So when we first built it, it was just the cabin, right? And so for years, guests came into our house to use our bathroom,
Okay.
to use the shower, right? But at the time, I was farming. I had also had interns that would live with us all summer. So it was
Okay,
just like, it
right.
was fine. I was in my 20s. It was cool. Years later, basically once the pandemic hit and we couldn't do that anymore, right? It wasn't safe to be sharing spaces like that. So that was really the thing that kickstarted us into, all right, this is the time, we've got to figure out how we can make this more sustainable if things like this happen, right? So that's when we invested in creating an outdoor shower and an outdoor kitchen, which basically are closer to the main property, so removed from the cabin, still private spaces, but we were able to tie into our well and provide running water that way and minimal electricity. So there's enough to, charge your phone, to run a little mini fridge, that kind of a thing. So yes, we also have Wi-Fi available in the outdoor kitchen. But again, all of these sort of creature comforts are absent from the cabin itself. The cabin itself is still very much, your off-grid
Running a hairdryer and a
experience.
microwave might blow the circuit. Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
can't do
full
that.
bathroom here. I see this. This is your outdoor shower. Is it a composting toilet?
Composting
How does that
toilet.
work? Like, do you
Yep.
clean that out
And
or
an outdoor.
anything, or what's septic guy come? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So it's cleaned out between
Oh,
every
between every
guest. Yep.
guest.
Yep. Every guest. It's not an incinerating toilet or like a hole in the ground. It's not a pit. It's self-contained, and the waste is actually composted. It's called humanure. You can Google that and really go down a rabbit hole. It's really popular with off-grid stays and really big like in New England and Vermont and Maine and these more
Yep.
rural areas.
Beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
Is this your husband in the rocking chair outside the fire pit? The guy with a red plaid on? No.
No, that's Ethan Abbott, who is a wonderful photographer that
Oh,
we
okay,
work
so
with quite a
he's
bit.
his own
Yeah.
model in the picture that I'm seeing here.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Hot tub,
Wood-fired hot tub.
wood-fired hot tub.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So that was an amenity that we added, I think, in 2022. It's made by a company called Goodland. They're in Canada. And we'd been searching for a wood fired hot tub and really had some awful experiences with companies and had actually ordered from another company and ended up canceling our order because the customer service was so awful. But it all worked out because this new company came on the scene. Goodland started up kind of during the pandemic. We got one of their first tubs and it's been amazing. It's wood fired, but the interior of the tub is lined with marine grade aluminum so that you can basically treat it like a bathtub so that between guests, the whole thing is drained. You can, scrub it out, sanitize and everything. And then they have cedar chairs that insert into the tub. So you still get that feeling of like sitting on the wood and it's wood fired, but it's like super sanitary and you don't have to worry about staves swelling and contracting like you do with most wooden hot tubs, which would be a real challenge in a New
How much
England
does a wooden
climate.
hot tub go for?
So I think today I want to say they're close to 6 or 7,000. We got a little bit of a break on
First
that since we were
customers.
one of their first
Maybe they
customers.
get to
Yeah,
use you as a testimonial also. Yeah.
exactly.
All
Yeah.
right. So who's coming to this place? Like, what have you learned about your guests?
Yeah. So it is mostly younger couples from urban areas. So mostly New York City and Boston.
Are they
Yeah.
bringing kids?
No, no. So we have, everything is very small. So there's one bed, it's a double bed. So it's like max two people sharing one bed. So it's very much like a couples retreat. And then we get a fair amount of folks on a little solo retreat
And
as well.
even though your season's May to October, you said, or May to November, October, do you know the average length of stay of your guests?
Yep, it's typically 2
Okay.
nights. That's the most common is 2 nights. We this year, actually, we had quite a few people do 3 nights, which
Hmm.
was nice to see. Um, and that's one of the, one of the comments you always get is everyone says, "Oh, I wish the only thing I complain about is that I didn't stay
Mm.
longer." So 3 nights is really great if you wanna sort of go out and
Hmm.
do other things, because a lot of times what people, they'll ask us, "Where should we hike? Where should we eat? What are all the things to do?" And then they like don't leave, which we consider is the biggest
Right.
compliment, right? Because they're just like so relaxed and chilled out and like enjoying everything that's here. But if you do want to kind of get out and explore, then 3 nights is definitely
Like the
kind of the
property
sweet
unto
spot.
itself is the vacation. It's the getaway. I'm guessing
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
weekends book first and you charge more for the
Yes.
weekends.
Well,
How do you
yep.
learn how to
Yep.
price this property?
Yeah, it's been a lot of trial and error over the years, for I think it was 2022 or 2021. We open our calendar in the fall, so we'll release our 2026 dates in mid-October. And I think it was either 2020 or 2021 when I did that. My husband was at a doctor's appointment with our son, and he texted me and he said, "My phone is blowing up with all these, notifications of booking. Like, what did you just do?" And um, I realized that people are pent up from the pandemic and they were really paying attention to when the calendar opened. And I think we were booked out within a
Hmm.
month or two. Like by February, we were booked for that entire season, and we weren't even opening until late May. So that kind of told us like, okay, maybe we're haven't met our
Hmm.
price ceiling yet, right? So over the next couple of years, we just started tinkering with pricing. I do everything manually. I do a lot of research. It just never the math didn't math for us to do any sort of third party
Hmm.
pricing apps or anything, just because we are so
Hmm.
seasonal and small. So I've got it pretty dialed at this
Can I,
point.
can I ask what is a
Yeah,
typical night like in the summertime? Like what's your going rate right now?
yeah. So weekends are typically 249 a night, and then weekdays are
Okay.
199.
And that could keep going up until you find until you find that the demand is low and you probably went a little bit too high. Yeah.
Right,
But
exactly.
I mean, it
Yeah.
does sound like the objective here is, you want to make some money with this property and find what you could fairly charge for the property, which I think is smart. I've seen a lot of people that shy away from dynamic pricing or they don't know how to price their property and they're booked out really far in advance and they're happy about that. And I'm like, yeah, but you probably didn't charge enough. Like you probably really just got, because you know how people are. Like, oh, there's a lot of last minute demand, right? I'm
Yes, right,
yeah,
especially.
and were you
Mhm.
affected by any of the flooding in Vermont at your properties?
Our property was not, but because of the media coverage, a lot of people assumed that, they couldn't come, or they were coming
Hmm.
from like anyone that was coming from the north, it was really hard to get here. So we did suffer a lot of
Yeah.
cancellations because
Did
of
that
that.
happen
Yeah,
twice over the past couple of years? Like, was there, yeah,
it happened
200
twice.
year
Yep.
storms that only happen once every 100 year, but they
Yep.
happen twice, you know? Yeah,
Twice.
we're in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and we lived in Boston for many, many years. And knockwood, we haven't experienced that like as a community. Um, we're
Hmm.
looking back at that saying like Vermont, like we see nor'easters that hit here, right? And they hit our properties in Provincetown, they hit the Cape, they'll hit the seacoast, but the last thing that you expect is, what Vermont saw, which I did wasn't like a couple storms that basically just sat over the state and then all the rivers crested and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Some areas, I think the most recent one, I want to say it was like
Yeah.
9 inches of rain in a matter of hours, which is just,
Yeah.
that's awful. Luckily, but it was very localized, you know what I mean? So it's like certain towns where the storm was just chilling out right over it were really impacted. We didn't, like I said, our property is very much on a hill. We have sandy soil,
Right.
like flooding is definitely not ever an issue for our property itself. But yes, the community and like the roads, the infrastructure, everything, throughout the state that goes down is definitely has an
Does
impact.
staying on the property can guests get flowers at your property?
Absolutely. So one of the things we do is we provide clippers and a vase for people to cut their own bouquet at checkout
Oh,
to take home with them.
what a
Yeah, and people.
memorable thing to do. Yeah. I wish I
Yeah.
could offer something like that, but we're not even on site to do all of our gardening. Like I'll show up and be like, oh, I wish they did some weeding better than they did. All right. So I'm fascinated by the types of people that are coming. And I assumed it was exactly what you mentioned, kind of younger couples looking for adventure, looking to get off the grid, looking to get out of the city. That's a lot of what we see in our places in New Hampshire as well. Ours are on a lake in just south of Winnipesaukee, so not the primary lake, but a secondary lake. But
Yeah.
when you're in the city and you see these pictures in the woods, it's a world away, even though it's a 2-hour drive or a 3-hour drive. And
Exactly.
that's what people are looking
Hmm.
for. They just want to get out of the urban environment and get some fresh air and see the leaves changing and hear nature and come to a situation like you have. We actually have multi-generational families that come, because our properties are a little bit larger. um, but it's the same thing. It's like these families want to get away into the woods. You just happen to be hosting couples that want that couples retreat.
Yeah.
Are you doing the cleanings yourself?
No. So we have 2 to 3 cleaners that
Okay.
help
Were you
us.
doing
Yeah.
it at one point, like early on?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
did it for
What
years.
what
Yep.
got you to switch?
Um, my business just started growing
Hmm.
in other ways, which was great, was a blessing, right? And yeah, it's just cleaning is one of those things that is pretty easy to outsource, because there are people who do that. There are companies who do that. Whereas I'm always looking at through like the farming lens. For if I hire, field work, that's really hard. There's a lot of training involved. Even if you've worked on another farm, every farm is a little bit different. But cleaning is pretty
Hmm.
standardized. You can create a checklist, and anyone can come in, and as long as you're helping them out with the first time and reviewing their first clean, it's a pretty smooth process from there. Yeah. So it just made sense to
How
outsource
often are
that
you hearing from influencers who want to stay in exchange of, staying for free?
all the time. It's overwhelming, honestly. I I can't take anymore. you know, Part of it is that we do have a very short season, and our first photographers were folks that reached out to us and did a trade, and um, we love them now. Ethan Abbott's that I mentioned earlier is one that we work with pretty much every year. Another photographer that we've worked with is Jess Amich, and she has actually become our content creator and social media manager. So we have those relationships built, and so we're pretty much set with that for the most part. I do try to host 1 to 2 influencers a year, and they are mostly
Hmm.
newer people. So I know how hard it is to be a beginner at anything. And so I do try to choose 1 or 2 per season that are just getting started and show some, not necessarily just promise in what they're doing, but like are organized, will follow up, will follow through, or, the people that you can tell they're really taking
Hmm.
it
Yeah, I
seriously.
mean, it's
Yeah.
an extremely Instagrammable property. So I'd imagine you'd hear from a lot of people. And are you
Yeah.
getting a lot of direct bookings as a result of this, or what's the complexion of where people are actually making that booking?
Bookings from
No, I mean,
Instagram,
like
you
when
mean?
you're on Airbnb and you're on Hip Camp, um, are those the two places that you're booking all your guests, or do you have a website also that you
Yes.
have a direct booking process where you vet them and do payment collection and that kind of thing?
I don't do direct booking for
Okay.
this property. No, there are some things that insurance wise and everything, it's a little bit tricky if we were to take on all of that ourselves. And honestly, as a small business owner, I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm honestly happy to hand over some of those fees because it means that I can focus on other things and not be handling bookings all day or having to hire someone
I
else
don't
to
think
do
that's
that.
unpopular at all, to be perfectly honest. We actually we think Airbnb and Verbo are great partners of ours. They provide the marketing services and the pricing and being merchant of record and collecting money and dealing with resolutions and whatnot. And yeah, they're going to have to
Yeah.
charge a fee for those services. And
Yep.
the structure for Airbnb is changing. By the time this episode comes out, it will have changed for us, because we have our properties on a property management system where they're going to move all of the booking fee over to the host instead of have the guest pay it. But
Yep.
everyone's obviously just going to offset their prices and not absorb it. But I see them as great partners. I don't think that's a problem at all. Like they take a lot of the lift off of what we have to do. And with that said, sure, we'll take direct bookings. Like we have a direct booking engine through Hospitable, which has been another great partner of ours. But people could book however they choose to book. If they book on Hospitable, yeah, they'll probably get the best rate. But if they want to book through Airbnb or
Yeah.
Verbo, absolutely, you could book it that way. It's just the common thing. So same
Mm-hmm.
thing with you. It takes that off of your plate and having to wrangle the checks down and who these people are.
I agree. Yeah,
Tell us
absolutely.
about some of the issues that have happened over the years with either guests or your property, or weather not cooperating, or people not thinking that they're
Mm.
getting what they're getting, or people having a higher expectation when they show up and they don't have whatever creature comfort they thought they were going to have.
Yeah. So I can say with confidence that 99% of our guests and our experiences have been incredible. I'm really grateful for that. And it's also not an accident. I do put a lot of thought and effort into keeping our listings updated, accurate, reflecting the change in seasons. We have a quite comprehensive packing list that we send to folks 2 weeks before check-in. And it's really a lot about things that I might take for granted, or someone who's been camping before, Rory, would probably like not even think
Right.
twice about how to pack for a trip
I
like
would.
this.
I would need your
But a lot of
list.
people, yeah, a lot of people don't. They need that. So it's like if you sort of read the information and follow it, and like actually check the weather and look at what the low temperature is during your stay and that kind of thing, then it works out great. I would say just a couple sort of, less than ideal situations come to mind. I did have one recent group that stayed here, that a couple, and woke up at midnight to very loud music playing, which was of just such an anomaly. It was a first. It was almost like I was so stunned and shocked that like it was even happening, because it's just really not the vibe at all. Like people come here for peace and quiet, and like it was 12:30. It's not like it was 9 at night or 10 or even, but it was late. So that was really the only, and they, the next day they were very apologetic, and they were just, really young and weren't reading the room type of a situation. But honestly, that's probably the worst thing that's ever happened. Once in a while you'll get someone who sort of isn't prepared. And I think the only thing that really, I would say, bothers me about that is with when people don't reach out and say like, hey, I didn't pack warm enough. Like, can I have some more blankets? Or like, do you have any suggestions of, because I am the type of person, I'd be like, here's a wool sweater, here's another down duvet, or like whatever. Just tell me, like, I'm not going to chastise you or be mad, So that's one thing that I wish, in my experience, I actually have guests that maybe don't reach out enough if they need something. Yeah, and I totally get that feeling. Like sometimes you don't want to be a bother or whatever, but I would encourage guests to, if there's something that, some little thing that we could do to make you more comfortable, it doesn't hurt to
Right.
ask.
Because you're actually on site on property. Do you meet
I
all the
am on
guests?
site. Yeah. I don't. The majority of my guests, we never meet. Just the way the property is set up, it was a lot of privacy. The parking area is the only thing that's sort of close to my main property where we might cross paths. So the majority of the guests I don't meet.
So
Yeah.
that's interesting, because you are on site, and I would probably do the same thing if I were you. That I would kind of let the guests come and go without saying that you're there.
Mhm.
The equivalent for us is the 3 lake properties that we have at that one lake are right next door to each other. And sometimes we will be on site staying at one of them when I have guests. The other was, and I usually don't make myself known that I'm there as the owner.
Yeah.
Because I don't, two reasons. I don't want them to feel like I'm staring at them the whole time. And I
Right.
also don't
Checking
want
up.
them to have to like
Yeah.
come to me all the time when I'm there as well, like, and be knocking on my door if there's a problem. I'd rather them go through the app and the process, and then we can kind of solve it that way. Now, your guests do know that you live there though, right? Okay. But
Yes.
you make
Very
the
clear.
expectation that you're
Mhm.
like, hey, listen, like, we're here if you need us, but like, we're going to let you be
Mhm.
when you show up.
Exactly. Exactly. You've got all your space, and we'll be working out in the field and in the garden or something, and it's, sometimes people will come up to us. So very much leave it on them. The level of
Yeah. I mean,
interaction
if
is up
you're
to them.
outside
Yeah.
working in a capacity and other humans walk over to you on your property, you're probably going to say hi. The, the presumption is they're your
Absolutely.
guest, right? you know?
Yeah.
Um, all right. So
Yeah.
as we start to wrap up, I know that like when we were talking early, you were teasing some stuff that you're working on, and you couldn't really get specifically into too much of it. What can you tell us are the next things for you, or for Tangle Bloom, or the cabin, or wherever you're headed with your ideas in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing that we've been thinking about for the last couple of years, as the calendar books up so much, and that's like the biggest sort of quote unquote complaint we get is like, you're always booked, like this is such a bummer unless you can plan six to 12 months in advance. It can be hard to come stay, especially if you're limited to weekends, right? And we've also, especially with our social media presence and our email list, have really built up what's really feeling like a community, which is amazing, right? Like people just wanting to, connect back to nature, slow down, unplug, all these things. And just thinking about how we can meet that, how we can serve folks who maybe will never come, maybe they can't ever come here themselves. Maybe they live across the country, or they've got little kids at home, or whatever it is, right? Um, yeah, so we do have one project in the works that I think will start to meet some of that need that I can't say much about right now. But I am also very open, and there's a survey that's going to go out to our email list soon, to hearing from our community of like, what does this look like to you? Like, what is the content that you're liking? Tell me everything, like, what are you looking for? Don't even think about the cabin. Like, what are you looking for in the realm of connecting to nature, um, being in community, slow living, like all those things? What do we need right now, people? Let me know.
I see the wheels turning. I see the opportunity here. I applaud you for giving so much thought to all this and for building this level of community. I mean, if you go to your website, vermontcabin.co, there's pop-up boxes saying like, hey, get on our email list. And people probably do that, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A link to
Yes.
join the wait list for first dibs next year. Excellent, social media presence on Instagram. So yeah, there's some kind of community element here. I can't wait to see where this heads. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I'm very.
So we'll link all this up in the show notes or in the YouTube description below if you're watching this. If people want to reach out to you directly, Instagram's probably a good spot. What do you like? Instagram DM? All right.
That's a great spot. Instagram, yeah, at Tangle Bloom _.
Yep, we'll link that up as well. You can hit Melissa up in the DMs and ask lots of questions. Thank you so much for being part of SmartStay show and being, one of our few glamping conversations to this level that we've had. We've had similar off the grid type guests, but this is interesting. This is different. This is a different one. So I like what you got going on here.
Thank you, Jason. It's been so much fun
thank
to
you.
talk
Thank
to
you for listening or watching. If you want to like or subscribe, we certainly like that as well. We read all your comments, and if you want to be a guest on the show, you can go to smartstayshow.com, where we also have all the past episodes. All right. On behalf of Rory, who's not here, and Melissa, who is here, and me, thank you so much. Bye-bye.